despair. I get all click happy with Ecamm. So we are here, we have a background, and we're talking about weird ways we use Chat GPT in marketing, which is fun. Rena, I know you've avoided Chat GPT for a while now.
Yes, it is true. It is true. But I have kept up on the issues around it. So hopefully,
Ooh, I have
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. So,
I do
yes,
know our industry is busy and changing and strange, and having Chat GPT really does affect some people in our industry, right? So tell me about
absolutely.
the issues. Tell me
But,
about the issues first, and then we'll
okay,
talk about all the cool weird things we can do.
yeah. So there's still some controversy about what ownership, authorship, ownership, especially in the imaging world, because of course, all of the images are sourced from online sources, and you can't just take other things and turn them into something else. There's actually um, a space where something becomes new, and it's kind of arbitrary. There have been a number of court cases in the past where artists have used appropriation as a tactic in their art
What is that?
practice. Appropriation is when you take, especially something that is well known. So you might take a real art piece, a reproduction of a real art piece, and then rework it in your work so that it's still actually identifiable as that original art piece. It could be taking a whole bunch of different pieces of art and putting them together to make new meaning. That's sort of what appropriation art is considered. So it's working off of the canon, which is the canon really refers to those big um, um, monumental pieces of art that mean something in the world that art history has canonized, basically put in the canon. So they would be really easily identifiable by most people if you've paid attention to art galleries or even just online things, or bought a calendar from an art
Mm,
gallery, those art calendars.
I
So, and
love
that has to
those.
do, so that gets you in trouble with licensing fees, because most of the time, if you're going to make something to profit off of, you're going to have to purchase a license of some kind. So there's some issue around that, and artists are quite concerned about that. And I suppose probably authorship too, in terms of, it's bad form. It's bad form to copyright infringement to take other people's blog articles and rework them, but
Mhm.
it's also a fairly known strategy. People do that. So when you put Chat GPT in it, because it's sourcing everything from the internet already, these lines of what ownership means, and if you make something, then are you able to claim ownership over it?
This is
Maybe
really
not.
interesting
Yeah. So
because
people are, yeah.
oh,
Go ahead.
well, because there's the writer's strike now, right? So this is a lot what
Yeah.
this is about. Oh, and Greg, I know you're here. And just so you know, don't come at me about the image, man. I worked hard and there were 2 seconds left. And anyway. But
Okay. So
the
some of the
writer's
places,
strike, because of
yeah,
this.
yeah, the writer, yeah, that's exactly right. So uh so there are components of it. So it's like, where is this stuff being sourced from? Can you claim authorship over it? And I think there was a court case recently about children's books, or books that are being made by Chat GPT, and how you cannot claim authorship over that. I think that's how that landed. So if you can't claim authorship over something, then there's nothing to prevent other people from taking that exact text and then selling it themselves, and not in an affiliate way. So they would just sell it and get all of the proceeds from that, if you can't claim ownership over something, or authorship or copyright over something. So it does pose a little bit of a problem. Um, and same with imagery. It's the same with imagery. And then what was the and then so the other aspect of Chat GPT, which we need to talk about, is like prompts and how to work with prompts, and where it's pretty safe to use Chat GPT and where it's not safe.
Right?
And so, for example, if you know nothing, if you're not an expert in a subject matter, my advice is to not use Chat GPT for that subject matter without having somebody who is an expert in that field actually go over the work and fact check. Like, we need to do that fact
Mm.
checking piece.
Well, yeah, that brings up there's a funny thing that happened with a lawyer and a court case,
Oh, yes, yes,
and
yes,
that, yeah, so, and that's where that comes in. So there's use for this tool. It's just how we
yes.
use it
So
to our advantage, right?
yes, it's like a calculator. You know, like, you can punch the numbers in to get the answer, but if you're punching the numbers in the wrong order, or not understanding the equation, the equation that you're trying to get an answer to properly, then you're not going to get the right answer probably.
Mm.
And so ChatGPT is more like that. You actually have to have cognitive ability, which is a lot of like, critical thinking to actually break down the argument, make sure it stands, make sure you fact checked the facts, make sure you know the sources that it's coming from. So that's the other thing, that's the problem number two that I find, is that it doesn't actually provide citations to
Mm.
anywhere that it picks up facts. And unless it's common knowledge, you need to actually cite your facts. Where did you
Well,
get
you
that
can,
from?
you could go and figure out citing your facts by
Yeah,
using what search operators.
that's
Um,
true. That's true.
right? If
That's
you don't know
true.
what
So, but
search operators are, you need my free class.
yeah,
Just so you know, just so
that's true.
plug.
That's true. So it's not. So that's my piece number one. Piece number one is be careful about your copyright and what you're allowed to claim on that content. The piece number two that I have, or advice number two, is make sure you're fact checking. Make sure you're not doing something in an industry that you know nothing about, especially if it's going to be um, really detrimental to somebody's business. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a really wacky example, but I can't. But let's say you wanted to know how to install a hot tub on your roof, right, or something like that, or on your deck, and you don't factor in the weight of the water and what the weight is
Mm.
allowable on your space, or how to find that out. If you're missing that, then you might come into some problems. I don't know what the liability is like there, because I'm obviously not a lawyer, but you wouldn't want to give advice that you can't fact check and make sure is actually accurate, because if you ruin somebody's business or somebody's something, or there's possible liability issues there.
Well, and yeah, so one of the interesting things is Google fights algorithm. Like, the reason we have algorithms is because of spammy content, because of all these different
Yeah.
things, which is one of the things Chat GPT allows us to do. But in that, there's some, you know, okay, so let's definitely identify, there are problems. Do we want to go back in time? I don't. So I'm going to use it. I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna try it. We've been trying different things. I got some marketing friends, and they give me ideas, and some of the cool stuff. Like, I was just watching a video before this too, of course, and you can put an image, a link to an image, and you can say, "Hey, describe this image." I think that'd be a
Yes.
really good way for alt
Yes.
tags. But
Yes.
one of the best parts about the Chat GPT, and I do have trouble saying that, just so everybody, I'm always gonna have trouble saying it, it seems. Um, but like, you can just talk to it, right? So it's this, and it can become like an endless conversation, like, where you can say, write me an email, and then after that, make it shorter, make it funny, like, put it in my brand voice. How does it know your brand voice? Ask
Yeah.
for it. Like, it's
Yeah.
really interesting
Yeah,
that.
so those kind of things are fun. So if you're using it as a place starter, or if you're using it for something more simple, like, I love that idea of how to write this in your brand voice. So you could actually literally take a transcription of an audio piece that you do. So say what we're doing right now. We could take this, we could put it through one of those transcribe machines and get the text, and then we
Yep.
put it into Chat GPT and say, hey, organize this, or we could say put this in our brand voice, or we could say
Yeah.
whatever it is, and just keep giving it more prompts to get it
Put it
better
in
and
my
better.
grand. Yeah. put it in my brand voice, write a blog, make sure the blog
Yeah.
has a list in it, summarize the
Oh,
blog, like just all the little
summarize
things.
the blog.
And
You said summarize the blog. That would be brilliant. I
right,
hadn't thought of that one quite yet.
yeah,
That's a really
yeah,
great one. You can come up with it. And now, do you
it's
think that would
fun.
be good enough for excerpts or not?
I am
Like in
not
terms of
sure. So,
SEO?
I do like to test content with
Mm,
AI detector, like just to make sure, because I think if you use more than one system, this is where you'll get the advantage, right? Where you use Chat
right.
GPT and then you use Grammarly or you use the Hemingway app, because Chat GPT is not gonna speak with the same language skills for some reason that Grammarly will or Hemingway will. So it
Right.
depends on what your
Right.
goal is. Like if we're writing good content, we know that good content is at about a grade 6 level online so that
Yeah.
more people can enjoy it. It's short sentences. So does Chat GPT do that? Yes and no, but I often find if
Yeah.
you use several of these items together, it's where the
Yeah.
magic lies, right? And also reading it over. Like that's
Yes.
really
Yes. That's
important,
key. That is
right?
key.
I
So,
find it's
um,
an inspiration. That's what it is. It's inspirational to what you're doing. That's what I find.
yeah, and there could be really good steps in your process that you can build in to make things easier for your team or faster for your team. The one place that I used it for that Pip actually you recommended, which I
Mm.
really liked, I did use it. That's right. I had to communicate um, a situation where I wanted a client to stop texting me late at night. Okay, and
What?
I was pretty pissed off about it at that time that I was actually trying to reply to
No.
the email. Yeah, I know. So I was exhausted and it was a Saturday night and I was just incensed. And I understand people are not always they're doing business, especially entrepreneurs. They're doing business after hours because they're out of their business and they're working on their business now. They're not doing their in stuff. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like it's got to just send it as an email. I don't want to deal with it as a text because for me it triggers emergencies. I think my server's down, things like that. I feel like there's something that I have to look. And so anyways, I threw this into Chat GPT and said I'd like to sound friendly and professional, and I want to be able to tell this person to stop doing this. And it came up with the most beautiful little piece of a little email back that did not I thought was really to diffuse the situation, because sometimes what happens if we are too
React.
businesslike, yeah, it will. If we're too business sounding, then it actually changes the relationship that you have, because often we're quite friendly with our clients. And then when we shift to purely business language, it can actually be startling for people. And we don't want that, right? That's not the intent. The intent is to, um, the intent is to change a behavior, not make somebody feel like
Crap.
they've done something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't
Right.
want to
And
punish them.
we're all in our own worlds, so it's
Yeah.
I think that's maybe part of aging well is learning how to have the conversations you need to have, to
Yeah.
live in your respectful space, yet get what you need and respect other people, right?
Yeah.
In business, it's a hard balancing line. We all cross lines and we don't even know we're doing it sometimes, right? Like if we need something, want something, I think I think I can't believe can't believe I recommended that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, you did. And then the other place where I use it is to create variations for tweets. So if I want to
Mhm.
tweet multi tweet one particular URL, instead of repeating the same little bit at the beginning, you throw the bit at the beginning into ChatGPT and you ask for 5 variations on
Mm.
this.
Yeah, it's
Um,
the prompts are really interesting. I should say, Rafi,
yeah.
thank you for saying that. That's so nice.
Yeah.
Um the getting doing the prompts. So one of the most interesting things is because I can't think of all the things you can do. Like I can't. Um I don't know what to ask Chat GPT. I think
Oh,
this is one of the things, right? So finding prompts, like I did my operators search. So, what was it? It was the keyword, which was chat GPT summary or best or whatever, um, and then file type, which was a PDF. And I found some, because I figure if you're putting it in a PDF, you're a
Yeah.
company that's put some hard work into something. And so I want to see your stuff because it's hidden behind like a paywall of giving away an email, right? Things like that. So it's a great thing to find. But yeah,
Are you telling the world that you're finding?
finding people's
Okay, so
PDFs. Yes,
here's the thing.
I know how to. You know what? Here's another thing I should add about the Chat GPT. Let's be serious. If we're searchers and we use Google, we're already using something similar. Like when I write Google ads, I go over to
Yeah,
Google and find brilliant
yeah,
reviews and see what the people are saying, and actually will try to implant some of that copy into my ads. I'm not
yeah.
coming up with this stuff. Clients and customers are saying this about businesses. So we're so yeah. So yeah, I'm cheeky that I know how to search online well, and I want to teach
So
everybody how.
yeah, so there are a ton of prompts that you can buy online.
Free, you
I've
can find a
actually
lot of
bought
free
quite a few
ones.
now to see.
Have you bought some?
Yeah, you can find a lot of free ones. Yeah, I have. Of course I have. Of
I have
course I have.
not.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm
I'm
so
even
cheap.
in I even, and there are a bunch of Facebook groups. There's one in particular. I imagine that there's a bunch because when there's one, there are many groups specifically organized for ChatGPT. I recommend doing a little Google search on your Facebook page, on your Facebook account,
Mm,
and finding those groups and joining them and seeing what other people are doing. That's another really great tip
yeah,
that I think. And because why start from zero when you can start from 10 already?
or
And
8.
somebody's already tested out a few things and found some prompts that work for them. And you can sometimes find industry specific prompts that's
Mm,
helpful. And I think that that's a really great way of working with it. So I prefer to utilize it for my blog posts and for my short form content, and not so much for books. Although I don't do books anyways, I would never do anything that I would think of that I would want to sell. So
mm,
because when I want to sell something, I absolutely want to own the copyright on that thing. And so I'm going to make sure that it's from scratch.
right.
And
We should
probably,
mention that too with Google. The reason Google stopped indexing books and
yeah,
like was because of copyright. So this is where they stopped.
yeah,
I mean, Google would have had the
yeah,
biggest book library ever, but I mean,
yeah.
so it's very interesting this copyright, right? And this is where, well, things are going to get dicey. But other piece of really interesting information about something like this is, when we started, scientists started sharing knowledge, is when we
Mhm.
grew as a species and got so much better, right? Was when everybody started sharing and opening up their books. So there's some interesting different views on a lot
Well,
of the things going on.
yeah, but yes, but it's a fundamental pricing model. So in the olden days, researchers, writers, creators in general, artists, they all got paid through um, government or patrons. And so therefore the stuff was available. And then when they started to be paid by private enterprise, what would happen is that business would want to recoup their research investment in that. So that's where copyright came out of. And I would
Mm,
be all for putting research back into state control, because I think that that creates a better model for people in terms of really getting things that are good for society and not necessarily perfect for profit. And that's exactly what happened with the insulin thing. So the government paid for the research. The researchers sold it to the University of Toronto. I don't know what happened for a dollar, and I don't know what happened between Toronto and the next person who got it, like who actually made any money. But that's what happens is somebody owns the copyright, um,
mm, yeah, it's true
and
with.
and
Sorry.
money ruins everything. So yeah, So because what we don't want to do is actually take from creators. In my mind, this is
Yeah.
my personal ethics. We don't want to take from creators because creators spend an awful lot of time making things for free all the time. They did it during COVID to entertain everyone, and they didn't get paid for
Who is
any of it.
they? What
There were
entertainers?
artists, there were creative people that were online doing things for free all the time to
Okay,
entertain
but
us.
a lot of those people, I mean, it's the Facebook model, right? Do it for free until you can monetize, right? which
No,
which
there's
which
no way
has
to.
been, but a lot of people who gave away stuff, free content, there was an underlining reason, whether or not they wanted to become famous, whether or not they were selling a course, whether or not they
No,
wanted, influencers. So
no.
there's lots of avenues for, I mean, this is why it's such an intense discussion, right? Because there's so many different elements that we all have to consider and not consider, right? Like, where I think it's a fun thing for right now. I'm just taking the perspective of fun, lighthearted. I'm not taking things and copying and pasting. Like, that is not a recommendation I would make. Companies have been doing that for years. Online, it's crappy. It's crappy user experience. It's crappy experience.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there are going to be these big topics of discussion that come out of this, right?
Well, it's going to be more legal battles than topics of discussion.
For
And that's
us,
what'll
it'll be topics of discussion.
that yeah, so that'll be what defines it. So this is always what happens when something new comes up, is that it gets challenged in court, and then the court decides how much of what we can do and what we can't do. And we're going through that process at the moment.
Here's a good question. Should we give human touch to chat GPT content, or should we go entirely for the content without any changes?
Yes, always human touch. We'll read it and see if it sounds like it's got a human touch,
Yeah, yeah.
because some of it can be really, really entertaining.
I think just, I don't think it's just human touch. I think it using it as a starting point to get ideas or to help formulate, like, the more you kind of interact with the machine, the
Yeah.
more fun it is to kind of get things. But you have to realize everybody's getting the same stuff. Write me an email to tell Bob, he's got 15 days to close the sale, whatever, right? Like, it's going to be, hello sir or madame. But then, and so when you go deeper and you're like, write it in my brand voice. How does it know your brand voice? Take all my searches and make a brand voice for me, right? So
So do you think you could actually write things like, I always think of it as creating content because that's my first primary thing. But do you think that it would be fine for doing things like creating SOPs and creating sales funnels and creating sales processes and scripts, or do you think we should be doing that ourselves? Because you're the sales scripts girl. Like I
um
don't do
I've
that.
never so I in the end, when you practice something enough, is it a script? I know that scripts are helpful, but I'm also a fly by the seat of your
Yeah,
pants kind of girl. So and I know what I want the outcome to be. So
yeah,
yes and no. I mean, you would have to, as I think Greg's saying, always change it to your own flavor. But
yeah.